Welcome to Comix Relics. I'm Ray Mescalado, and today I'm going to ask the question, can you purge too far? I made a video a while back on how I plan to purge my comic collection again. I used to do so on a regular basis, but I haven't in a long time. And I've always liked the idea of heavily curating my collection, that it's important to decide what comics matter most to me and to be able to let go of those that don't quite make the cut. Besides, in this age of online shopping and digital reading, you can still read all the comics you like without keeping them on your shelves and in your short boxes. What the inclusion of physical comics means for me nowadays is a statement that these works are personally meaningful, that they have an aura, a totemic value that goes beyond practical concerns and may even lead to some irrational choices, such as my owning 5 different editions of Walt Simonson and Archie Goodwin's Manhunter when only one would suffice. Or really, just a digital would suffice. But I gotta have these different editions. And the fact that I gotta have it, and that I don't even want to try to justify it, I think speaks to me as a collector as when it matters most. It's that level of attachment, that kind of emotional investment which you can't explain to others, but there are others who know that, which defines what my perfect comic book shelves and boxes would look like. But before I can achieve that level of curated perfection, I have to get rid of a whole lot of books and floppies I've acquired over the past decade and a half. I've been putting up stuff on eBay and also discovering some stuff just isn't worth putting up on eBay after factoring costs and effort. I'm just getting started and really enjoying the process, though let's be honest, the money is very necessary for me right now. But it's also been fun finding good homes for books I once treasured but must say goodbye to. That said, I now catch myself looking at certain books and floppies and going, well, maybe I don't really need these anymore. The purge has barely started, but already I'm asking myself if I can purge too far. For example, it was easy to decide to put up a bunch of omnibuy on eBay. JLI, New Teen Titans, Fantastic Four. They're all very bulky and they fetch a decent price, and I can read them digitally if I ever want to go back to them. I love these books, but ultimately I did not love them that much. I've also decided to put up my slipcase hardcover of Kingdom Come. I just had to admit to myself, I'm not a fan of the miniseries. It's been sitting in a short box, unadmired and neglected for a long time. So yeah, if I can get a buck and give it a good home for someone who'll actually love it, that's a win-win no matter how you look at it. But I've also decided to put up a trio of Jacques Tardy hardcovers for sale, the I. René Tardy books. I may put up all his war books actually, while keeping the crime books and the Adelaide Blanc-Sec. Those are the ones that I enjoy most, and hard decisions have to be made. I need the space, I need the money, basically. Curation often involves facing up to some difficult truths, and my personal truth is that I love Tardy's work and think he's one of the greatest comics creators of all time, but his war books just don't speak to me. That's not a criticism of the books by any means. I think it's more a criticism of myself and my own tastes, because I would never say those works aren't beautiful and powerful comics. They're just not the comics I need on my shelves anymore. Then it got even weirder for me. I found myself looking at my Humanoids Incal Slipcase edition and both Parker Martini editions and even my Daredevil Elektra Gallery edition and wondering whether they could fetch me online. Was I really ready to give those up? I immediately dismissed the idea, though I have to say that putting up the Incal is still lurking there for me. I like Mobius. I'm not sure if I like Jodorowsky, but I like Mobius. Maybe that's the opening I'm looking for. I don't know. The Incal is a masterpiece, but do I really want to lug it around the country? I already have it in my Comixology account. And just how much can I get for it? Hold on. Okay, I just looked it up on eBay and the temptation is still there. I want to believe that there are books and comics I would never give up, but I think of that old joke. A man asks a woman if she'll sleep with him for $1 million, and she immediately says yes. Then he asks if she'll sleep with him for $5, and she says, "Of course not. What do you think I am?" And the man says, "We already know what you are. Now we're just negotiating on the price." So, as far as comics go, wouldn't I reasonably give up any of these for the right price, even as I treasure them now? It's just comics after all. There's very, very few that I could not replace later if I wanted. And again, I can just go digital on so many of them if I ever want to read them again. Maybe I'm just trying to make it a lot easier to get rid of a whole lot more than I once planned. I have to confess, recent events in my life made me appreciate quite vividly the value of traveling as light as possible. I mentioned in my last unhauling Purge video that I used to move from place to place with only one short box of comics and one large milk crate of graphic novels and trade collections. Could I go back to that? Would I want to go back to that? Would I have no choice but to go back to that? Then there's that slight fear of a Legion Volume 3 situation. For those who didn't see the last video, in my lifetime I have bought and sold and rebought Legion of Superheroes Volume 3. The whole series, in floppies. It felt like a problem. And I now realize I've bought and sold Teen Titans Omnibus Volume 2 twice in my lifetime. Though the most recent time was the edition without the Judas contract, so I'm not sure if that should count. The point being, purging isn't a good idea if you're just going to binge again. So I don't want to go through that. I want to know when I purge now, I purge for good. But then I imagine if I do purge a lot more of my collection than planned, imagine how great my curated shelf will look. It would be as pure a distillation of my taste in comics. I could point to it and people will know exactly without fail what I think are the pinnacles of the medium. Wouldn't that be worth clearing out so many books for? Or does curation have its limits when you're a comic book fan? There's also one last wrinkle that I need to consider, and it's that I still want to acquire and own more comics out there. Being on eBay so much now, I encounter books I want, titles that I've been craving for years. There is one book I especially want that has been out of print for decades, and a copy of it is now on sale at eBay. I put it on my watch list, and it's tempting me. If it was just a little cheaper, no, if it was a whole lot cheaper, I'd pull the trigger and own it and be oh so happy. But it's still out of my meager budget. I mean, we're talking over $100 for this paperback. So luckily, I'm able to resist because, well, I can't afford it. Once again, poverty is strength and being broke augments my willpower. But the temptation is still strong, and it always will be, and I'm still keeping my eye on that book. And that's a part of collecting comics as well, of course. That whole Henderson the Rain King, I want. And on that note, thank you again for indulging me. I'm Ray Mescalado. If you want, you can check out my eBay store, help me with my purge, and maybe get yourself some nice books. How's that for a shameless plug? Anyway, have a good day. Goodbye.